Louisville, Kentucky, Brooklawn Foster Care, their workers put a 7-year-old in a chokehold until he vomited and ended up dying. So we have a photo of the child. This is not a recent photo when he was 7 years old. It seems that it's when he's a toddler, but this is the child. It's Jason Terry, and he would become a ward of the state in August of 2021 and received care at Uspiritus, which is a foster care parent organization comprised of Bellewood Home for Children and Brooklawn Child and Family Services, where Jason was assaulted. So on July of 2017 and 2022, 2 Brooklawn employees allegedly assaulted and physically restrained Jason. Reports show that a program manager was told Jason was held in a chokehold until he started to vomit. Bellewood and Brooklawn are meant to care for children who have been neglected and abused, but allegedly, they have their own history of child abuse. A recent investigation by NBC News also found that the therapeutic foster care facilities have been the subjects of 35 internal probes by the Kentucky Cabinet for Health and Family Services for the past 8 years. NBC News reports that about 32 children were under the facility's care as of August 20th. Still, Brooklawn and Bellewood have been at the center of abuse allegations well before Jason's tragic death. Among the 200 pages of records obtained by the state agency, an investigator wrote that they were concerned because of a pattern of behavior at Uspiritus of broken bones during restraints. So Jason's cause of death at Brooklawn was explained. That court documents show he suffered multiple injuries and suffocated in the position until he was unconscious. He remained unresponsive until he was transported to Norton's Children's Hospital in Louisville, where he was pronounced dead. The Jefferson County Coroner's Office ruled that Jason's death was a homicide by positional asphyxia, so he suffocated to death. Now, Jason's family are taking action, so we know that this was the type of court case where the child was taken by the state and was not surrendered. So Michelle and Misty Andrews, who's the couple who raised Jason Terry after his parents lost their parental rights, they filed a wrongful death and negligence complaint against Uspiritus. This was a 7-year-old child. So meanwhile, Uspiritus has fired 2 employees involved with the incident. Police and state law enforcement agencies are investigating what happened, and the Cabinet of Health and Family Services has suspended new placements at the Brooklawn facility where Jason was allegedly abused. Now, NBC News got a statement from the folks at Uspiritus, and here's what they had to say. We take very seriously any allegations made by a child in our care or by an employee of our organization. To protect our children and employees, we thoroughly review every allegation and take timely and appropriate actions to include termination of employees if necessary. We self-report allegations to Child Protective Services and guardians that have been brought to our attention. Self-reporting includes a child or staff member calling or electronically reporting to the Department for Community-Based Services, DCBS, and their relevant guardian, including DCBS when appropriate. So it's known that children like Jason are placed under foster care when their parents are deemed to be negligent or abuse them. But today's foster care children have many other types of backgrounds. So here's an article of the horrifying misuse of foster care. It's from AEI, Riley and McKay. Our child protective system or child protection system is supposed to protect vulnerable children whose parents abuse them or are unwilling to care for them. A foster home is either a private home or a congregate care facility where abused, neglected, or abandoned children are placed by a government agency for temporary care. It then goes on to say, but in the current political environment, that system has just become another off-ramp to divert young criminals from punishment, perhaps even worse than plans to defund the police, eliminate cash bail, and promote reparative justice over incarceration, sending juvenile defendants into the foster care system puts them into close contact with our most vulnerable populations, and the system lacks any kind of rehabilitative services that juvenile delinquents are supposed to perceive to prevent escalating criminal behavior. So very interesting takes here coming from AEI. So the foster care system, if we just think about like what the government should be, we can acknowledge that there are some cases where parents are maybe unfit to be taking care of a child. And I always think about a community approach, right? It takes a village to raise a child. And sometimes our individualist culture of a nuclear family household doesn't suffice to properly raise a child. Many people, have their own stuff going on. They have their own trauma. And for whatever reason, they end up abusing their child. But to put them in foster care facilities with people who clearly don't care about children is very obviously not the answer. And we just have to do better because this is disgusting. Jackson, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's definitely key that there's more oversight because one of the important things people have to keep in mind about centers like this, whether it be foster care centers, nursing homes, or even red light districts, these types of environments can often attract low-life sadistic people. Because these centers are typically filled with society's most forgotten individuals, whether those be children who, sometimes kids can end up in the foster care system who come from decent backgrounds, they just were dealing with poverty. But often these children come from very rough backgrounds and there's really no one to claim them, no one to look after them. Individuals in nursing homes, oftentimes they really don't have any family. There's nowhere for them to go. And then in red light districts, some of society's worst criminals that we've seen who target women, and who engage in prostitution in those areas. Again, people who aren't particularly looked after, who's gonna come looking for them? And it's because of this that these individuals, the most forgotten, why we need more oversight, especially when you're talking about children who never really had a shot at life to begin with. It's not like they became adults and they just made bad choices or had rough times. And it's, and for foster care, that's more of a system that has more government oversight, not doing the job that it should. But I thought this was a really sad story. But again, this is where the most sadistic people often prey.
Yeah, and it's really telling that AEI is reporting stuff like this is just a way to divert young criminals from punishment. It's like they acknowledge that we don't have systems in place in our society to properly take care of children. And that often leads to them committing crimes for safety, for economic necessity, right? It's my thinking that violence begins and ends with the state, right? The conditions of poverty that people grow up in that often lead to crime are created by the state. And so the response cannot be, well, foster care facilities are just, a way to divert punishment from crime. It seems like AEI and their typical approach to stuff like this is them saying, oh, well, we should just put them in jail anyway because foster care is just a way for them to avoid jail. It's just sick. I really wish we could approach these issues from a place of wanting what's best for the kids in our communities, but that is not the country we live in now, is it?
Unfortunately not, but again, that's what we're fighting for, so there's hope to be had.
There is hope to be had.